Today we're taking a look at the NESPi case from Retroflag. And here it is. So this is the box for the NESPi case by Retroflag. The box is so nice you almost don't want to open it, but here it is anyway. Not open, but the item itself, which is of course the NESPi case. As you can see, it looks a whole lot like a NES Mini. Yeah, let's compare. NES Mini only slightly bigger, but the shape overall is the same. Button placement, everything. The back, HDMI port, power port. There's different spots for them. That side's the same, and you know, except for this SD card right here, it looks, well, yeah, pretty much the same thing. And of course, USBs. Now, one difference on this one is that the flap actually opens, has the Ethernet port and 2 more USB ports if you do need them. Taking a look at what else might come with this. This does come with the hardware for it, of course, which is a couple screws, and it does come with a little tiny screwdriver, as you can see here. It's all in a bag. Yeah, I opened everything just to show you guys. The case does have a spot for a small fan. Oh, instructions also come with it. The case has a spot for a small fan. I did buy the fan. I don't think it's really needed for this. Pis are pretty cool. They don't really need fans, but this is a spot. I got it anyway, so. Moving on to the case itself, we're going to go ahead and pop this guy open, and you'll see what's going on inside here. So right now it's not screwed shut, so the cover just comes directly off. Pretty simple. And as you can see, there's a big old spot in the back for the Pi, the connectors, and it's, you know, the little hubs, everything like that. What we'll do now is just kind of compare the size of this Pi going in this case, just to take a look at how it would go in there. With it next to it, you can really see, you know, how it fits in there. So it's well designed. It's got the little hub up front. It's got the power connector to it. Everything is pretty compact in here. You don't want to be too rough with getting the stuff in here, but it's durable enough where once everything's together, it's going to have a good fit and finish. Normally a Pi in a case looks like this, and one thing I will say with this NESPi case versus a standard Pi case is, on a standard Pi case, all the ports are basically all around the device. Every edge has something going on. Be it that GPIO connector, the USBs, the Ethernet, everything's around it. With this Pi case, the NES one, they've consolidated everything around to the front and back. Nothing's on the sides except that SD card. So you have the ports in the back, you know, and ports in the front. You don't have things coming out all the sides of it, which is really nice. It looks a lot better for displaying and not just project purposes. So with this, we're going to go ahead and start connecting everything. The Ethernet goes right here, and it's pretty short. Again, just be careful. And we're going to go ahead and fit this guy inside just like that. Once the Pi's in place, the port should be flush on the back. As you can see, now it looks like, you know, it's meant to be there. That, you know, it's in a good spot. So looking good, just like that. And as far as these screws go, I'm sorry, not the screws. We'll get this power connector. The instructions do show how to put the power connector on, even though the instructions are translated kind of poorly. The pictures do show exactly where you got to get everything going. So it should be a good tight fit. And as far as the screws go, again, these screws are really tiny. It does show these 2 single black ones go on the ports on both sides of the GPIO connector here. So right in that spot and right in this spot. So just be careful installing those. We're going to get these screws in here, and we'll be back in just a minute with the next step. Alright, so with those screws connected, we're going to go ahead and put in the next thing. Not the next thing, but I'm going to move this to the side and put in the little fan that sits down here. Right in this spot, you can see is clearly cut out for, I believe it's a 30 centimeter fan or 30 millimeter. I forget the measurement, but it's a small fan. They use them a lot on little RC cars and stuff like that. I picked up this one on eBay. It does click in here, however, it slightly moves a little bit, so I don't want to just leave it clicked in. So I'm going to use the screws that came with it. Now, the screws that came with this were not specially for this NESPi, which I do think they have kits for it, but So the screws to me feel a little on the long side. So the nut that came with them, I'm actually going to put the nut and put it way up top and just screw it all the way to the top of the screw to kind of act as a spacer just to get it in there. So with the spacer added, I'm just going to put the screw in here, and it's not going to drive down as far. Just a few turns to get it in there. Should have a nice tight fit on it. And the reason again for this is if the screw is too long, you don't want it making a bubble, or even if worst case scenario, coming back out of the top of the case, because then you ruin the entire case. So I got one screw in here. I'm going to add one more. I think that should be sufficient enough for now. If it is rattling or anything like that, I'll come back later and add the third and fourth screws. But right now, I think just two should be just fine. Bringing this back in, as you can see, there's a little tiny power connector on that little upper board that this power cord is connected to. It is marked positive, so red goes to positive, black goes to negative or neutral. And that's about all we need to do out here. So we're going to close the case. Everything lines up just fine. And we're going to put in the additional 6 screws that hold the case shut. 2 go in the middle, and 4 more go around the corners. So we're going to go ahead and get these in here right now. Now, again, they go around the sides, middle, 6 screws all together. There's tiny screws, just be careful. And this little door, just like a real NES, does open. Of course, there's no expansion port down here, but there is a neat spot where it shows you can put an extra SD card. So I think it's a nice touch. That's a really cool little feature that I don't think they need to do, but I like it anyway. So here's the case completed. Everything's screwed shut. Everything looks really good on it. And we're going to put the SD card in. Now this SD card already has a installation of Retroflag Pi on it, which I actually had done for the 8-Bit Bazaar, so I don't have to install anything. I use the exact same type of Pi for that project, so I'm just swapping the card over. I'm going to go ahead and grab a TV, hook this guy up, and we can take a look and see it boot up and see it work. Alright, so we have HDMI, we have power. The screen I'm using here is actually not a TV, it's just a computer monitor, so it doesn't have audio on it. It's actually going HDMI to a DVI cable from there, but it'll work just fine, just for this purpose anyway. So I got everything hooked up. We'll go ahead and plug in. I'm using here, this is a Xbox controller, a third-party Xbox controller. It's by Mad Catz. Alright, we'll boot this guy up, and we should start seeing some activity up on the screen here. Right about now, we should see the Pi logo pop up. And it's actually very faint for some reason. You can kind of see it up in the corner. We should see something a little more legible on the screen in a second. Raspberry Pis, there we go. Alright, so this is all the Linux stuff booting up. Here's the Retro Pi logo. It's going to go back into more self-check and code and BIOS and all that kind of fun stuff. We're just going to skip a second and get into the emulation station, which is the main part of RetroPie. And here's emulation station running. So you get this menu. Even though it just popped up, it does take a second for you to kind of get control. And here's our list of NES games. I'm going to go ahead and go down and we'll pick, I don't know. We'll pick Contra. Contra's a fun game. So we'll get that going. Takes a second. Again, more little boot up code. It does this every game. So, and we should see the logo. There we go. Okay, so we have Contra. Traditional NES Contra. Who doesn't love Contra? It's a fun game. So, as always, guys, I do appreciate you watching. I hope this little tutorial of installing the RetroPie helped. I think it's a great device. It looks really good. You know, instead of using a regular Pi case, this NESPi case just looks fantastic. So, alright guys, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.